Hello, everyone. Wow, we haven't seen each other for a while. It feels like just yesterday. But
It was yesterday.
how's everyone feeling before we start? Everyone feeling okay?
I'm good. Yeah,
I'm
weather's
great.
nice.
Yeah, cool. I'm psyched.
If it's possible, to be tired of hearing your own voice, I am that.
Now you know how we feel, Mike.
We're all tired of hearing your voice. No, definitely not. You did a hell of a job yesterday, and you guys all did. All right, let's jump right into it because we got winners and losers to talk about today. And is that okay, or do we have anything interesting?
Well, no, Russ has got an interesting pre-show thing.
Okay, well, we start with
pre-show because I think Kevin will like this.
Yeah, go.
Yesterday, during the day, they were, predicting that Steph Curry was going to pass Wilt Chamberlain for the all-time Warriors points record, and it made me want to look it up because I saw Wilt towards the middle, really towards the end of his career, last 3-4 years. But my dad always talked about him, what a great athlete he was. He was a track and field guy. He was a volleyball guy. Like, he wasn't just a big basketball guy. And it made me think, well, Steph Curry has 3-pointers. And so I imagine Steph Curry's done this in pretty quick order. But Steph Curry, it took him 12 years to do what Wilt did in 6 years. And so, the argument is, well, Wilt was, bigger than a lot of the other guys. And my argument back to that is, because Mike was mentioning that to me yesterday, my argument is, well, Manute Bol only averaged 3.7 points in his best year in his career, and he was bigger than Wilt. So it's not just about being big. And so they're saying that Steph Curry is better than Wilt Chamberlain. And they also had mentioned that Steph Curry is a better assist guy than anybody in basketball history. And, of course, he's never going to pass John Stockton, and he hasn't even passed Tiny Archibald yet. Now, as a player, he's probably a top 10 player all time. But I don't like the fact, and I hope ESPN does not do this with hockey, but I don't like the fact that they just sort of make their own history. That bugs me.
Yeah, I'm a big Steph Curry fan, though. What I like about him is not only is he a great athlete, but and it's a cliche sometimes when you say he's a better person than he is a player.
He is. I saw him on a live taping of the John Oliver show. Stephen Colbert when he first started. Yeah. I was there, and I could see everything, the outtakes and everything. Terrific guy. The way he was very respectful, really good guy.
Yeah, and he's done so much with people. And I know I was talking with Jeremy Roenick about Curry always went to the NBC golf celebrity golf tournament that Roenick always played in, and Roenick got to know him, and he said, everything about him is just so real. Like, he said a lot of guys at that celebrity tournament will sign autographs, but Steph Curry will go, 3 times the amount of time everyone else will do it. And he's just so, into, just being himself and, doing his thing and enjoying, his celebrity status. He doesn't let it bother him.
Good points.
Really cool.
And interesting, you brought up Wilt Chamberlain because, as everyone may or may not know, right now in the trading card world, it's nuts.
Really?
Since the pandemic,
Since the pandemic has started, the prices have gotten ridiculous. I mean, we've seen cards sell for millions of dollars, newer cards. And I just saw, Wilt Chamberlain, despite being an incredibly dominant player, has never been particularly popular with collectors. But his rookie card, I just saw this like 2 weeks ago, went on eBay, a graded card, a PSA 8, meaning it was, one of the better graded Wilt Chamberlain rookies, went for $124,000. So,
holy cow!
Yeah,
it's interesting. I love the. I know you guys have done a really good job with trading cards and stuff like that, and that's fun stuff. I mean, I've heard of, but I was talking to our buddy Steve, who wrote an article for us last year about some trading cards, and says how the prices have just gone up so amazingly since then. I was talking about that recently. It's crazy.
Yep, no, they've gone crazy. But again, when people were home, they went back to something. They reverted back to something they really liked to do, and that was collect.
And of course, like, I started collecting sort of late when I was like maybe 13, 14 years old, and I got some decent cards, but when I was collecting, I didn't care as much about the condition of the card rather than the card. It's like I have
none of us did.
Yeah, I have a Mike Schmidt rookie, but it's got a crease. So, it's probably basically worthless. I have a Robin Yount rookie that's a little off center, a George Brett rookie that's got a corner. So it's like, it's basically, I have a collection of great things that are all dinky.
Well, you know me. I mean, what do you think I did with my hockey cards? I taped them to my rod hockey players. Like I taped them on top of them. Like I taped, so they're like totally beaten to hell. Like my hockey cards.
Yeah.
Like I would take a hockey card.
What's rod hockey?
Like the turn hockey thing. Where you have the the bubble hockey.
Table hockey.
Table hockey.
Table hockey. Yeah. Table hockey. Rod hockey. So the players that spin around, and so I took the player. I would take a player that spun around, and I would take the hockey card and paste it right on, and then tape it right on top of it, and I would change them out. Change them out for different games.
One other quick thing,
spokes. Yeah.
Sorry, Mike. Yeah, we did put him in the spokes too. One other thing, at my dad's house, he gave me a book that my grandfather collected, and since Kevin and I published some books, Kevin a lot more than me, it made me really appreciate this book. It was a 1958 book. It's like the length of it is like the length of like 3 or 4 books. It's that quintessential table book, and it's like basically, it's in biographical order of Western gunfighters from 1958. The author signed it. You open it up, and it says the binding was done by these people. The typeface was done by these people. It looks completely typed, like off a typewriter. But my dad was a printer, so I know that it was printed off a printing press. And it's just the meticulous care that they used to do for these books, Kev, is crazy. This one happens to be in great shape, and I finally have to read it because I kind of like the Western gunfighter angle.
Yeah.
Nice stuff. All right, let's get started here. Ready? It's Tuesday, April 13th. That should be easy to remember because it's the day after the trade deadline. Hello, Hockey World. It's Tuesday, April 13th, 2021.
I'm Michael Agello, and what day is it?
Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
I'm Kevin Allen from HockeyBuzz.
And I'm Eklund. You're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday, usually not for 4.5 hours, but 1 hour to fill you in on the comings and goings in the hockey world. Although if you guys pay us enough, we'll do 4.5 hours every day. We just need $1,000 from each of you on Patreon, $1,000 from each of you on Patreon, and we will definitely do 4.5 hours every day. No problems asked, no questions asked. That's a challenge to everybody out there. We know you're watching. All right, so here we go. We have Kevin Allen on again. People are like, Kevin's back, and it's a Tuesday, for crying out loud. What's happening? The world has gone bonkers. So we just wanted to have Kevin on because he wrote a great article for HockeyBuzz today about the winners and losers, and this is really the fun time to talk about that. Today's the day to do that. So we're gonna start with I'm gonna talk about ours, but I want to start with you, Kevin, and give me your biggest winner.
Well, it's interesting. Normally, I've been doing these for 30 years, the winners and losers, and they're always a little bit challenging to sort of sort it all out. But I thought this year's was fairly obvious. The big winners were the big contenders. Certainly the Tampa Bay Lightning picking up Savard, the New York Islanders getting the goal scorer they need in Palmieri, and the savvy veteran in Zajac obviously was a big winner. And the Maple Leafs. I mean, the Maple Leafs got a player that they, really feels to me like a glue type player. Tying their team all together. A guy who's got some pushback, a guy that's got some leadership, a guy that has some character, a guy that's been around the block a little bit, in Nick Foligno. So I really like them. And then there were some smaller things that maybe people didn't think about, but I thought the Yzerman move, trading Mantha, was huge. And I was interested to see how the fan base in Detroit reacted. And, they get it. They knew that Mantha, was struggling to be the player that the Red Wings wanted him to be. So they're very excited about that. And the fact that he was able to get back a comparable player, and Rana and he are very similar in terms of the number of goals. Mantha had a bigger season, but here's the 2 points I would make. Number one is even strength. Verana's been a much better player. Now, he played for a better team, so let's throw that out there. But and the other thing was, and part of this was the fact that they were willing to take Panik's contract, but they end up with a first round pick and a second. So that so the Red Wings were my fourth, and then my fifth winner was the Florida Panthers. I thought they just did a really nice job of getting pieces that sort of make them a much better team, and getting Montour and clearing up some cap space. There was just a lot of deals that sort of added up, and it's almost a continuation of what Bill Zito, the rookie general manager, has been doing all season. And I keep bringing this up because I think it's lost on people, is how many changes he has made. He has changed over half of that roster. And the only similarity that I can use is what Jim Rutherford did when he went to Pittsburgh.
Right.
That first year when they ended up winning the Cup, and half that roster were guys he brought in. And, he didn't change Malkin and Crosby. He just changed the guys around them. And I think that's what Zito has done. Huberdeau and why am I drawing a blank on it?
Barkov
and Huberdeau are still there. They still got Ekblad, although he's injured now.
Yeah.
Keith Yandel is still there. The nucleus is all there, but he's changed all the people around them, and now they're a completely different team and a culture. And the final one I had for a winner, I also had for a loser, which I've never done before. I have the Columbus Blue Jackets as both a winner for getting 2 first-round picks at a time when GMs were all saying we're not going to give up for first-round picks for Foligno and Savard plus other picks as well, and a loser because if they're in a position they have to trade their captain and a very valuable defenseman, that this season has not gone the way.
Yeah.
True.
That's a great point. I mean, really it is. And then Patrick Laine is not looking a lot better either, so they're in another spot there too.
And I agree with that, Kev. But if they would have not done that, then they would have been the bigger loser because they had assets that they needed to trade, and they took advantage of it. And they'll probably get Foligno back after the year. We'll probably re-sign with the Blue Jackets. At least that's the indicator.
Very possible. Like I talked about the situation with his wife and his kid down there. I mean, if that was me or that was any invest, we probably would re-sign there.
Right, but I think it was more than that. It was the fact that Yarmo went to him. He was involved in the process. There was a lot of respect there, and I think that it was a mutual thing. So I think that will lead him back to Columbus after he plays with the Leafs. So let me just Kevin just said all the winners. I won't hog the losers, but I'll give you 2 big ones.
Okay.
One is the Winnipeg Jets, because they had an opportunity in the North Division to, I think, challenge Toronto and lesser so Edmonton, because I think Edmonton is a flawed team. But if they would have added, I think, a top 4 defenseman, they weren't willing to pay the price to get a top 4 defenseman. And in the end, they get a depth defenseman in Jordy Ben, who's a fine player, but he's not going to play that top 4 role. And I think that, they're going to have to depend heavily on Hellebuck in the playoffs and that forward depth to be able to get them through. And I don't know if they're going to be able to. I think they're going to have to depend too much on Pionk and Morrissey, and I don't know if they're going to call up any of the young ones. But the other one is, unfortunately, the Buffalo Sabres are a massive loser because they did not get anywhere close to. I mean, you can tell the difference between an experienced general manager and Jarmo Kekalainen managing his assets. And I know there were different situations and different, but Nick Foligno had a no-move clause. He was involved in the process. They got a first and a fourth for Nick Foligno. Taylor Hall had a no-move clause. In the end, apparently, there was a Western Conference team that was going to pay more than the Boston Bruins did, and Taylor Hall decided, I want to go to Boston. They didn't manage it right, and they get a second-round pick in Anders Bjork. They got underpaid on Stahl, and they probably got about the right amount for Montour, but they didn't get anywhere close to the value that a lot of people did. So I think they're big losers at the deadline.
All right, so I've got a couple things. First one is the Memorial Cup was canceled. And that kind of hurts me because I've been to 3 of them, and they're great. Like anytime I can go to the Memorial Cup, I go because it's just a spectacular event. So that's canceled. I think I would put maybe number 4 as one of the best moves. Went really under the radar was the Pittsburgh Penguins getting Jeff Carter. They only gave up 2 conditional picks for next year. Basically, Ron Hextall gets to call his old employer at the end of the year and say, well, how do you think it went? And they'll say, well, you can give us this and that, and that's okay. Like, they basically got him on borrowed money. It didn't cost them anything this year, so the fans can't say you spent assets for this draft, which you shouldn't have done. It keeps them in the race now and gets them a chance to go further in the playoffs. You could put Carter with Crosby and hope that you generate more goals with him. Like, this was a great under-the-radar move, I felt. That was one.
Go with you. I want to go with you on that one, but but do your second first, and then I'm gonna. I'm gonna hone in on a couple of things you guys are all saying. So.
All right. The second thing, the only thing that I would disagree with Mike is I think people are underrating what Anders Bork is, and I also think that people are forgetting Taylor Hall wasn't Taylor Hall anymore. So it's not like Taylor Hall could get the haul he would have gotten, lack of a better term, a couple of years ago.
No, that's very true. And I really felt nervous for Taylor Hall after watching that interview. Like, I just felt, it's rare that you feel sorry for a guy making that kind of money. And, I always say these guys, they're professionals or whatever. Taylor Hall has been through it, man. You can tell mentally, like he has, because he's a guy who I've talked to in the past and I've really found to be a very personable, very upbeat character, downright silly at times, and yet to see him in this after being traded to the Boston Bruins, which is an opportunity. Like, this is an exciting team to go to, a team that, has a lot of great players on it. He couldn't get up any excitement for it at all. He was more apologizing for what happened all year in Buffalo.
Yeah, like I said yesterday, that's reflective of the toxic situation.
No, I don't think it's. It is. But it's also just personally him. He knew when he went to Buffalo that this was probably going to be the scenario. We all knew it. He knew he was going to be moved to the trade.
No. If that was the case, he would have never signed.
No, not that it'd be this toxic, but he knew he'd be traded. He probably figured he'd be traded at the deadline. That's what I meant by that.
Yeah, but he thought it would be it'd be fanfare. There'd be trumpets going, and it would have been, kind of exciting. And there's one thing that's why I know Russ is right about Bjork's potential, but the fan base can't celebrate that because, as Mike's pointed out, the toxic nature of the environment is just so overwhelming to the fan base.
No, and that's fair.
That they just can't go there. Like, their idea was that they were going to have this guy for a season, and then he would or wouldn't resign. Probably wouldn't. Everybody sort of anticipated that, and then he'd be moved out for a first-round pick. But because that situation is so messy, and it's the messiness that is at the root of the agony that the Sabre fans are feeling over this. Like, if this was if there was a feeling of optimism in Buffalo, a second round pick and Bjork might have been enough. But there's no feeling of optimism. It's a feeling everybody is just distraught about where this team is at.
You know what they're talking about on Buffalo radio today, Eck? What they're saying is 4 first-round picks got traded on deadline day, and Buffalo didn't get one for the guy who had the biggest cap hit of them all.
Yeah,
but we all said. But here's the thing:
he had 2 goals, and it was obvious he wasn't going to be a first-round pick.
You can't say that on Buffalo radio, knowing he had his worst season.
Right. Really. What I got from Hall was a couple things. Like, when I was watching him talk, was a couple things. Like, not just like analyze the guy too deeply, but one, I got the feeling like my plan failed. Like that kind of situation. Like I was going to go to Buffalo. I was going to play with Eichel. I was going to do well. I was going to have a great season. I was going to get a great contract next year. Go to a contender. And he just looked like, man, that couldn't have gone. That was stupid. It felt like he was kicking himself or his agent or something just for saying, this just didn't work.
If it was Darren Ferris's idea to go to Buffalo, he should be fired because it turned out badly. It didn't work well with him and Eichel. It's been a failure. Now,
listen, Mike. To be fair on that, we all. I mean, we all thought at the time. Like, it's easy to go 2020 and say that, Ferris is in a job that does require. The results aren't there. He should get fired. I'm not opposed to that, but we also have to sit there and say this is not a horrible idea.
I'm as guilty as anyone because I thought it was going to be a success. I'm just saying it turned out not to be a success, and the only way that he can recoup any of his value is to go to Boston and light it up. And he's playing Buffalo 4 or 5 times before the end of the season, so I'm sure he'll get his goals.
6. They're playing 6 times.
Yeah.
Six times. That's a fascinating thing too. We'll get to later, but go ahead.
Well, I think I'm right on this, Mike. I don't think you can blame the plan. The plan was fine. It made sense. They were willing. This was an opportunity that he had. It was going to be convenient to play in Buffalo. He was going to have a top-notch center. They were giving him a real. There was talk for a while there that he may not even get $8 million. That he was going to get less than that to play.
Right.
That is $8 million. It looked like it was a good plan. I don't think the plan was faulty. The execution.
Right.
Right.
And some of it, Eichel's injury could not have been forecast.
No.
Yeah.
No.
I don't think people were I don't think people thought that the Sabres were going to win the Stanley Cup, but they thought they were going to be better this season. So I think the plan was fine. I just think, that it didn't work out. And I just think that what's going on in Buffalo is much bigger than the impact it has on Taylor Hall. I just think that the great fans in Buffalo, and they are great fans, deserve a better situation than what they have now. There's no trust, no faith in this organization, and I don't see that changing.
They need, what they need, Kevin. They need something like
they need
they need someone like a Billy Guerin to come in there. Honestly, is what they need. They need somebody who comes in there and says, "Screw what's happened. It doesn't matter. Just let's move. Like Chris Pronger would do this in a locker room. Like Chris Pronger would jump in the locker room and he would be like, "What the hell's wrong with you guys? Like, what are we all moving around for? We play in the NHL. We're hockey players. We're getting paid to do this. Let's go out and have some fun and let's win some games." And they need to get to the basics and simple. What was that?
That's not possible with the Pagulas.
It's completely possible.
It's
completely possible in that room. I mean, the Pagulas don't control the room. They control
the team. They own the team. They want control. The whole reason that Kevin Adams was hired is they want personal, hands-on control of the team. They were tired of hiring people that were suggested to them, like Tim Murray, like Jason Botterill. They've had it. They won't do it. That's why everybody's suggesting that Jim Rutherford should go in there as a VP of hockey operations. They don't believe in that. They want
that's not their management style. What Mike is saying is true. They don't want to bring in anybody else, not because even of cost, because they say they don't believe in it as a management structure for any one of their businesses. It's a tough sell. You're not going to be able to sell them on that.
I don't know. I don't know why. Like, this is a management structure. So what is it they don't like? I mean, every business has.
They want. I'll tell you what it is. Because I worked in management. They want as few people as possible reporting to them. They don't want many layers at all. They literally want it to go from the team to the coach to the GM to them. That's it. They don't want like anybody else in between.
Well, just hire Rutherford.
Yeah. Well,
I
mean,
right.
The funny thing is their management style. They had the same team president, which I think is unprecedented. They had the same team president for the Bills and the Sabres at the same time. That's how much they don't believe in hierarchy.
But do you want to know something about Sabres fans? Okay, we have on Hockey Buzz right now. We're trying to find the next great Sabres bloggers. We're having like this American Idol type competition where we had 10 people originally submit blogs. We've narrowed it down to 5. I'm letting people comment on it, and we're going to find the next guy. This is how we found Eric Engels. This is how we found other people along the line, right? This is a fun way to do it. The chat room, it's because the community is so strong. I wanted the community to kind of pick their guy, and they're really knowledgeable. Yesterday's blog that was up for 2 days, Grant. There wasn't a new blog post yesterday, so it was up for 2 days. 3,100 comments on Hockey Buzz. 3,100 comments on a Sabres blog for a guy. That's where Sabres fans are. That is like. When you're getting that kind of passion, that's insane. I don't think we've had a blog that's had that many comments in 2 years. I
did want to mention it. Dave Checketts at one time was with the Knicks because he always was with the Knicks and was overseeing the Rangers too. Okay. But he's the only other guy I can think of, Mike, in the history of sports.
Yeah, and that guy, the guy who was the team president of the Bills and the Sabres, was fired for a sexual harassment situation. So Kim Pegula took over as president of both the Bills and the Sabres. And I'm not attacking the Pagulas. This is what
they're cautious. I think they're cautious in doing something else. That's what it is.
Jim DeVolano was vice president of both the Tigers and the Red.
Oh, okay. Yeah. There you go.
Right. I mean, it's a bad situation. But the last thing on Hall signing there for sure was the fact that you have to remember, you have to put yourself in the context of the day he signed. Excuse me, the day he signed, we didn't really even know when the season was going to start. Like there were some crazy. I mean, everybody was basically gone, and for him getting $9 million at that point, I thought was insane. Like I thought that crazy because, I mean, we don't even know if there's going to be how many games we're going to play. We were having podcasts. We're like, I remember feeling this, like, what the heck are we going to play? Or is the pandemic going to be terrible? Is it going to get worse? Another wave coming? All this stuff was going on at that time. At that time, he signed. That was insane. It was a crazy time.
I'll give you another loser, and this is the thing.
I wanted to get X comment first, and then on Jeff.
Yeah, let me get my comment on the on Jeff Carter and then a couple of things Kevin had too, because I think that here's the thing, like I couldn't agree more with what you're saying, Russ. Like, and the thing about Jeff Carter, and we know him really well, and when he is fired up, and he is something. Like, and he still is something. Like, because remember Jeff Carter didn't play in the playoffs, right? The Kings didn't go to the playoffs. He had like a year off, right? So he was like basically doing, and I feel in that period of time he got a lot of his mojo back to like, I still want to be a hockey player type thing. Yeah. Because you saw it in the first couple games of the season, especially. Like I watched the first game of the season, he had 2 goals for the Kings. He was all over the friggin' ice. He was everywhere, and I'm thinking, my God, where has this Jeff Carter been? And then as time went on, the Kings weren't playing that well. He sort of settled back into his thing. I think he could tear it up with Crosby like no one's business because of the excitement of being in that situation again. I'm really looking forward to seeing it.
And talk about low risk. Okay, obviously the Kings retain 50% of his salary, but the last 2 years, this year and next year of his deal, right now in a realm where there's hardly any revenue with limited or no fans in the stands, he's a $1 million out of pocket for Pittsburgh this year and next year. Because
it's a great. I'm telling you, it's a great acquisition.
It's a no lose because if he doesn't pan out. Then, maybe they buy him out or
it's fantastic, and it also shows that Jeff Carter wants to play hockey. I mean, he really
he does show that.
And everyone just needs to remember he's 36 years old.
Yeah,
he's still like if you prorate his goals this year, he's probably on a regular 82 game would be like a 16 goal scorer. But the Penguins are a better offensive team, so maybe he's a 20 goal scorer. But he was a 20 goal scorer the year before prorated. If you look at that as well, I think he had 17 goals in 60 games or something like that.
Yeah. I think that the teams that you could loosely label as contenders that didn't follow through and make an ad, I would put them in the loser category. And like I said, Winnipeg is one of them. Yeah. Edmonton to a lesser extent, but they had cap constraints, so Kulikov was probably the only defenseman they could really add because he was about $1 million. But the Carolina Hurricanes, I'm sorry, the one significant move that they made, trading out Hayden Fleury, that was because Hayden Fleury wouldn't be able to be protected in the expansion draft. He's under contract, and they were going to protect Shea, Slavin, and Pesce. Dougie Hamilton's a UFA, so they don't have to protect him. They were afraid a former top 10 pick in Fleury would be picked by his former GM, Ron Francis, in Seattle. So they moved him before they would lose him. That's all. They didn't get a goaltender, and they didn't add a defense.
But they did say that they had a need for a right-handed shot with physicality. So if they really had that need, it's a high price, but they're willing to pay the high price because they couldn't keep the guy.
And here's my thought, and then I want Kevin to comment on Carolina for sure. My thought on Carolina is this. If they were in the Metro Division, they would have made a trade. And the reason because I honestly think that, the division they're in, they know they're in the playoffs. They know they know that they're up against it in the playoffs. Like they know. And
they didn't get that emergency goaltender. I still don't understand.
Oh, no, I know, but
I don't understand it.
I don't think they believe. I mean, Waddell the other day he was on Trade Center right before we went on the air, and he said we like where we are. If we can get an impact player, they may have tried to get Vatanen, we don't know, or whatever. But if we get an impact player, we'll go for it. But he also said, and they said, what about Tampa? Do you think you can, and he's like, Tampa's a hell of a team. Waddell is so crazy honest. He's just, he is. They're really great. And and it just made me think like, okay, you're in the playoffs, so that's safe. So from an owner's perspective, the owner knows he's in the playoffs at least. And now he's like, now if he was in the Metro Division though, would he be in the playoffs? Like, would Carolina be fighting playoffs? I think they would be. I think it would be different if they were in the Metro Division again right now. And I think that, Kevin, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I do agree with you that it would be different if they were in the Metro. It's just that's what was a wide open division. Anything can happen, and that's the position they would be in. But he said on the record beforehand that he wouldn't be doing anything big. He has consistently believed in his goaltending when nobody else did. He points to statistically they've been fine in the goaltending role. And he said that they were looking for a defenseman, and if they got a good deal on one, but he said, I'm not going to be, and this is my words, not his. But I'm not going to be stupid crazy by giving away, future assets to get a guy. And the bottom line is, and he didn't say this, but I've thought, was there anybody like, they've been better than Florida. They've had away with Florida. And was there anybody out there they could have gotten that would have made them as good as Tampa?
I would just no. There's nobody. But here's the only thing: for them to think that the goaltending is okay, they're 7-16 with Peter Mrazek in net in the last 2 years with goaltending. That's not going to get you to where you want to go. So,
do you think Mrazek will be the goalie?
I do. I think he'll end up being the goalie. I think at some point Ned Jelkovic will either falter towards the end, or maybe he loses a game and then they go to Mrazek. But I think at some point Mrazek will be the goalie because it seems like that's what they really want.
See, here's the dream scenario that Carolina should have been aiming for. If you look at the standings in the Central right now, the separation between them, Tampa, and Florida is 2 points. I would go all out to win that division because then Florida and Tampa will kill each other in the first round, and you play a cupcake in Nashville in the first round, and then you're playing a team that's probably going to go through a 7-game series with the Panthers and the Lightning, and you have a better chance of getting out of the division than you would playing either one of them than having to go through the other one in the second round.
Well, I'm going to repeat what Eric Erlandson said because I thought it was very insightful. I had him on another podcast yesterday, and he is a beat writer for the Lightning Insider. He's covered the team for forever. And he had talked to everybody within the organization, and they have just decided that it doesn't matter who they have to face in that division because they have learned the hard way that the worst of the teams can jump up and bite.
No, but all right, but that's true, Kev. But I grew up in an era where you looked at the schedule. I could tell you there's no doubt in my mind that teams looked at the schedule and they built their team up accordingly, knowing we're going to face that team either in the first round or second round, and we have to get past them if we want to win the cup. And I don't feel like they did that this year.
But here's the difference. You're absolutely right. Everybody did that except the 800-pound gorilla. And they are the 800-pound gorilla.
Yes.
Okay.
They fear no one else. And so they just don't think like that. Now, but I agree. Everybody does. They say they don't. But everybody looks at the schedule. Everybody has a team they don't want to play. That sort of
there's no question about it. I mean, Florida doesn't want to play Carolina. Florida wants to get in first place. No questions asked.
Right. They don't want to. No.
But the funny thing is, Mike, those cupcakes you call the Nashville Predators, I want to remind you something about the Nashville Predators, okay? The year they went to the Stanley Cup Final against the Pittsburgh Penguins, you know where they finished in their division? Well, they were eighth. They were because it was the 1 through 3, 1 through 3. They were eighth in the wild card. In the first round they eliminated the Chicago Blackhawks in four straight. Everybody, and at that point, I remember being so pissed off that the Predators fell to eighth because I'm like, oh man, how could you're gonna have to play the Blackhawks? What the heck? Work a little bit harder.
I'm not saying
it's saying that this is what Kevin said is what Tampa's learned. It's just like you just don't know what's going to happen.
Well, here's one thing. I think David Poile had the quote of yesterday when he said he's not going to lose Matthias Ekholm in the expansion draft. And the only way that's going to happen is if he gives a player to Seattle and they don't take him, or if he trades Ryan Ellis. Otherwise, it's going to happen. So he is going to do probably one of those two things to make sure that doesn't happen, because now he quoted and said he's not going to lose him that way unless he trades him before the expansion draft. I guess that's the third option.
Sure, but why? He could keep Ryan Ellis and Yossi and Ekholm.
Yeah, but there's probably somebody else that they want to save also.
Well,
I
do.
imagine-
they probably think I'm not sure if Dante Fabro would be somebody that.
Right. If Fabro's up for that, they would want to protect him.
I'd be willing to bet a nickel that they don't care as much about Fabro as
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I
Seattle would take him if he's a guy that's there. That's for sure.
You also mentioned, Kevin, in your article that you thought Philadelphia was a bit of a loser in the whole thing,
Yeah.
and I have to kind of agree with that. I know we talk about Philadelphia a lot here, but just give your thoughts on that.
Well, I mean, and you and I talked about this before I wrote that. My thought was they were close enough that they should have been moving even before Lou Lamoriello did, and there were people out there that could have helped them. I've had numerous people around the league said, everybody is blaming Carter Hart, and he has not been good, but the defense hasn't been strong, and they should have addressed that. And I think this is on Fletcher. It didn't seem like he was proactive when he could see it. The mudslide began. When the mudslide began, he didn't do anything. He didn't shore up.
And that's exactly what I said last night, Kev. He was reactive at the end of the time when he saw the team was out of it, instead of being proactive when they were still in the playoffs, and they may have been able to recoup something of this season. You're right.
Yeah,
I mean,
this is the same group that you remember how impressed we were with this team last year, and the core players are still the same.
They're the same. I mean, with the exception of Matt Niskin, who everybody talks about, but honestly,
well, I'll tell you the other one, Eck. It's Tyler Pitlick. At the end of the day, I brought this up last night. Yeah. He ended up making 1.7, and everybody was like, well, you can't have Tyler Pitlick now because you signed Eric Gustafson. If they didn't sign Eric Gustafson, they could have had Tyler Pitlick, and they would have been a better team just with Tyler Pitlick and without Gustafson, because they didn't need Gustafson. Yeah,
I agree. I actually thought Ottawa did okay too in some of the little things they did. I mean, nothing crazy, but I like that team. I mean, I just like the Ottawa Senators. Moving forward, they are just a crazy. Like, if there's two teams I watch now that you wouldn't normally watch, and that's Ottawa and Anaheim. Those two teams have so many interesting players on them, and they're just, you can see where they're going to be a little bit from now. Like I wrote the other night, and Mike responded on Twitter to me when I wrote it, but I wrote, that the Senators are going to be a factor next year in their division. They are going to be,
a little early.
A little bit early.
Only if they play the Montreal Canadiens and the Maple Leafs 41 times each, because they went 0-9 against Edmonton. They're not very good. They're not
going to play Edmonton next year.
I know, but I'm saying, jeez.
No, they're going
to be playing Boston and Tampa.
Okay, but they're going to be playing. For sure. But they play Boston tough.
And don't get me wrong, I'm predisposed to being an Ottawa hater, but I love the talent on that team. Talk about a player, Russ, that he's not going to be a top 6 guy for them, but that could be a difference maker just because he is unbelievably fast. Alex Formenton is somebody that destabilizes games. He's got McDavid-like speed. And
he's a little lesser, but for a big guy, he moves, man.
In the game against the Leafs, he created one shorthanded breakaway and another one on another goal. He's not even probably the 5th best talent up front. I mean, they got a gift in Connor Brown from the Leafs. Brady Tkachuk is a star. Tim Stützle is going to be a star. They have some fine tuning to do. I think they need a couple defensemen, and I don't know about Matt Murray in goal. I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt because defensively they're inept right now.
Yeah, I don't know. That's the one thing. I even said that on Sirius today. I don't know what Matt Murray's future is with them. Whether Seattle takes him just because they want a name, or he still goes on there, and at some point he doesn't play well, and maybe they have to buy him out. The one thing about Formenton, though, Mike, you saw him at his best last night, but he's pretty inconsistent when goal scoring. As far as goal scoring, he's only got 3 on the year
in 7 games.
But he has consistency issues, but he does have that speed. There's no question about it. But I do kind of
Batherson, and I mean it's not just the top.
But they have to have veterans around them too.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk to you because we got to end this thing today. I wanted to get into as you guys know, I do the predicted final standings, and we talked a lot about the division on the East. And I was working on it last night, going through it and seeing who's playing who and where they play, stuff like that, and how it's going to play out. And it's interesting because, when I played it all out, it did finish with the top 4 teams that we'd expect. Washington. So that finishes with the Islanders with 93, the Islanders with 83 points, Washington with 82, Pittsburgh with 80. And Boston was 70, and that's how it plays out. So, and the interesting thing about that, now that's Boston was 70, that's winning all 6 games against the Buffalo Sabres, right? So that's like going 6-0 against the Buffalo Sabres, which is a really tough thing to do. Now, right. I mean, because I don't think they're going to win all 6 games, and there is definitely there is an interesting factor to Hall being traded to Boston, right? And the Sabres with nothing to lose going up against them. I think that's going to be a fascinating thing to watch in those 6 games. You got to think the Buffalo is going to win a couple of them. And so the team that's closest, though, 3 points behind them, the way it plays out is the Rangers, 3 points behind the Bruins. The Flyers will end up, according to this, 10 points behind the Bruins still. So the Flyers are, done. But based on who they're playing, but the Rangers, based on who they're playing,
you may shake your head at what I'm going to say here, but I almost think the more important addition for the Bruins was Mike Riley over Taylor Hall, because right now Grzelcyk, Carlo, and McAvoy are all out. Rask is out. Halak is on COVID. So right now you've got Riley is a top 4 defenseman, and your goaltending tandem is Vladar and Swayman. So right. I mean that's it's the Providence Bruins, except that you have the incredible line, or whatever the hell they're calling themselves now.
Yeah.
And Taylor Hall with Krejci. I mean
and they got Curtis Lazar. I think that's underrated because you could plug him in any game and get some extra grease on that 4th line. Yep. He could walk in on the penalty kill. Like Curtis Lazar has turned out to be a decent, gritty little player, considering he was a first rounder. He kept his career going, and I kind of like what he's done.
So here's a couple of reasons that Boston could have trouble, okay? Which is interesting. So Boston in the playoffs, or trouble? No, in the rest of the way, as far as getting in. As far as like I said, they're going to win. They're going to win. Let's say they win all 6 games against the Sabres, right? That's fine. The team they play best against is the Flyers. They're done with the Flyers, right? No more games against the Flyers. The Islanders, they have really mightily struggled against the Islanders. They're minus 10 goal differential. They've only won once. And they've got 3 games left with the Islanders, who just own the Bruins for whatever.
Yeah, but when do they play the Islanders? They end their season with the Sabres, don't they?
They have the Sabres throughout. I think they do end the season with the Sabres, but they have them throughout.
I'm telling you, I said it, and I'll say it again.
You don't want to play.
They're going to squeak into the playoffs on the strength of beating the Sabres. They'll be fully healthy in the playoffs, and we'll be speaking a different tune about this team because, like Mike said, they're missing their top 3.
I'm saying they have to beat the Sabres or else they're in trouble. That's what I'm trying to say. But if they don't, and they're going to be in a situation that every hockey team hates to be in, a super duper favorite, like a big time favorite, where everyone's expecting to win all 6 games against the Sabres.
This isn't the Flyers, though, Eck. Yeah. This is the Bruins. That one. Oh, listen. If you think.
You want to bet right now that they don't win all 6 games against the Sabres? I'll bet you right now.
I'm not ever going to bet that because they may not need them.
especially not the way the Sabres have played during, with after Kruger.
Yeah, right. They're going to be loose as could be. You don't think they want to knock Boston out of the playoffs?
Never
Taylor Hall out of the playoffs. They can knock Taylor Hall out of the playoffs.
Never write off a team that has Bergeron, Marchand, and Pasternak. They will.
Granted, I get that.
They will beat you over the head.
You're just looking for a way for either Pittsburgh or Boston not to make it. You've been looking for it for 2 weeks now.
Russ, I swear to you, this is all math. I mean, this is
it
not
isn't math. This is crazy math.
This is not crazy math. This is looking at the records these teams have played against each other, how many games they have against each other left, where they are, how few days they have off too. I took that into account for this, like how few days they have off, which that plays into it as well because some teams are going to get more tired.
Pretzel logic. That's what this is.
Well, I like that.
That's a steely Dan.
You're arguing with a guy. Most of us know there are facts and opinions. With Russ, there are only facts.
Well, then Russ, this is what you should love.
I'm sitting here listening to this, and Russ is just throwing this stuff out, which is totally his opinion. But he's saying it as if it's just totally
gospel. And believe me, if there's anyone here that is an expert on the Boston Bruins, it's me, because the team that I cover has lost to them 4 times in the last decade. So
I'm just saying, okay. The Penguins, I told you the Penguins would be weak, but I've changed that after looking at who they play, like how they play and where they play it. They play teams that they want to play.
A couple weeks ago, you were dancing on their grave, the Penguins.
Yeah, I was. But that was before I went through and actually looked at this exact, just based on how they were playing. Okay, but looking at who they're playing and where and how often they're playing and how they have a better, the Bruins have hardly any days off. They're playing a bunch.
You have somehow turned I don't know how you did this, Ek, but somehow you have turned playing 6 games against the Sabres into an iffy thing, and it's not an iffy thing.
I'm not putting it as iffy. I'm putting it as a must 6 wins. A must 6 wins, Russ. Bet me right now that they win all 6 of those games.
No, I don't need to, because they don't even probably need to win all 6.
They need to win all 6.
No, they don't.
They do.
I don't think they do.
No, they don't.
I mean, unless they upset teams that they've been beating now, and of course they'll win a couple of those that they shouldn't have won, and that always happens.
This is what I do in those situations instead of trying to figure out, because they've been good thus far this season. Because that doesn't always work either. Because you'll end up losing that you should win. The better way to view it is, at least this is what I've done, is. And it's not foolproof either. But, if you say, okay, what's the worst Boston going to do? Are they going to do 500 hockey? Add those amount of points and then figure out what the teams below them need to do in order to pass them. I've done that, and I don't see any way that the Rangers and Flyers can do it. If you go 500 for the Bruins the rest of the way, and even without all those guys, they'll find a way to go 500.
Right.
So what's their standings now?
Well, right now they are. So right now they're 21, 12, and 6. They've got 48 points.
And how many games have they played?
They played 39 games.
Okay, so they've got 17 to go. So 17 points on the 48 is what, 65? Is that what they have? 48?
Yeah. Yeah, 48.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so they got 65 points. What do the Rangers have to do to get 65 points?
My thing.
Rangers have only 15 games left to get 56. To get 65 points, they would have to earn 21 points in 15 games.
They've got to win 10. They're going to go 10-5.
10-4-1.
10-4-1 if the Bruins only win 500.
Yeah, that's 666 hockey.
I mean, what that tells you is not even looking at who the competition is, because sometimes that's hard to read anyway. At least that tells you that that's a difficult challenge. So.
The Capitals have destroyed everybody in this division except for one team. What team is that, Russ?
I'm going to say it's the Devils.
That would be the New York Rangers. The New York Rangers have a plus 10 goal differential against the Capitals, and have won.
I should have realized it because they had that game.
Every game but one. They've won it. They've only lost one game to the Caps. They've got 3 games left against the Caps. All right, so you can sit back and say, okay, so I'm not saying that they're going to win all 3 of those games, but if they win 2 of them, someone banging their head against the wall. Is that what's going on back there?
My house is being demolished. Like we talked about this.
There's
if I'm in my sunroom, you won't be able to see me because the glare there is crazy. So I'm here, so you're going to hear some banging. That's it.
The Rangers' goal differential against the Boston Bruins -1 in the year, and they've split. They've totally split, even up, flat out. Against the Islanders, the Rangers are a +1 goal differential, and they've won more games than they've lost. These are the teams that Rangers are playing the rest of the way now. They're playing better all the time. So, yes, I mean, Kevin, what you're saying makes logical sense, and it definitely would have been easier than staying up till 4:30 in the morning doing this. But I can tell.
I mean, I'm not sure history predicts future success. It's just an indicator. Same thing is I like goal differential. So I think the Rangers have a good goal differential this season is proof that they're a team that careful with.
But I'm going to ask Heck the more important question. So lately, David Quinn has an aversion to Alexander Georgiev because he had some bad games and he hasn't played him a lot. He played Keith Kincaid more. So the question is, of those 15 games, how many games are you playing Shesterkin? And then who are
Yeah.
you using as the backup in the others? That's what's going to decide their season.
Yeah, well, fortunately, they're not as rough with back-to-back day-to-day games as some other
But it's
teams
still
are.
a lot of games to throw on.
They do. They have a
Shesterkin.
lot, but if you're not playing back-to-back, you can play Shesterkin a lot more. Then you not all the time. You're right. You're not going to play them all the time. There's one team the Rangers have been beaten up on by this team this year. It was like they have a -6 goal differential against the Penguins. The Penguins have beaten them up, but guess what? They played all their games against the Penguins. That's the only team they've also played all their games against. So that helps them too. There's some interesting things here that I'm not saying that it's going to happen, but I'm saying there are some interesting things that come through here. Like the Bruins being a -10 against the Islanders is kind of crazy. The Bruins are a -2 goal differential against the New Jersey Devils this year, which is also strange. There's certain things that are strange there. It's interesting when you look at. When you look at Buffalo and the New Jersey Devils have gotten the same exact points against each other and have a 0 goal differential against each other. They've actually canceled each other out completely. It's pretty funny, and they played each other all their games. So it's kind of fascinating to see like how this is going to come together. Who you have left matters.
Well, I'm going to say this. Let's say they play. Let's say they play Shesterkin 14 of 15, right? That would give them like 38 games on the year. That would be 67% of their games. That is Hobby Bulin numbers, and in the modern era, especially since he's really only a second-year goalie in this league, I think that's too much, right? So they're probably going to rest him at least 3 times.
I find something like this more interesting. Shifting to the north here, right now it looks like inevitably, Kev, the Leafs and the Montreal Canadiens will play in the playoffs for the first time since 1979. I mean, it's not locked in place, but it looks pretty good.
Right.
Their schedule right now, the Leafs play the Canadiens 3 times at the end of the schedule. They play them the 3rd, 6th, and 8th of May. You don't think that those teams will try to kill each other those games?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
They'll especially with Montreal being a more physical team. I think they'll not target. I mean, they're not going to take illegal runs, but they'll be laying the body on Matthews and Marner and the Leafs players. And the only way they don't do that is if the Leafs are so far ahead in the North Division that maybe they give their star players a rest in one of those games.
Yeah, I think we'll see backup goalies in those.
I think at the end of the season, you're going to see a lot of guys resting. Yeah. I mean, if you're in the playoffs and you know where you're sitting, there is no reason because I mean, with all those games that are being played, you're not going to you got to be a little bit fresh going into the playoffs.
Well, the other thing that we're not talking about is look what happened in the NCAA hockey tournament with COVID. We're in Michigan here. We're overrun by the new variant. And could that happen? The Stanley Cup playoffs, that could impact. I mean, we could just lose the team.
It could be the wild card factor. You're right.
We could lose the Tampa Bay Lightning. You just don't know.
Having been down in Florida recently, I wouldn't be surprised, honestly.
They can't get beat by the Florida Panthers. They can't get beat by the Carolina Hurricanes, but they sure as hell could get beat by COVID.
Yeah, I feel like I'm lucky. Like I got out of Kevin's house just at the right time and it saved my life. I don't know.
Exactly.
No, you're right. I mean, and I mean, our hope is, I guess, that we are still about a month away, right? And
more people
better down here.
Yeah. I mean, I've said
more players are getting vaccinated. That's the other thing that I want to bring up. That's there are players getting vaccinated, which is good.
Yeah, but here's the concern, Ak. I mean, right now, the rates are basically flat in the U.S. and everybody essentially who's an adult, like in New York, I think anybody, even somebody in their 20s, can get vaccinated. Today, the news came out that the Johnson & Johnson vaccine has been pulled right now temporarily because of a certain situation. But still, the ball is rolling in the U.S. In Canada, it's exploding right now. And again, I ask this question: if you're the National Hockey League, if you're looking to avoid a situation like what Kevin just said, wouldn't you, as the NHL, get the Canadian teams vaccinated?
Well, how can you do that without jumping the line?
Well, I mean, if I'm saying buy the vaccine in the U.S. where it is plentiful and give it to those teams.
I don't think that's ethical. I just don't think a professional team. The perception of line jumping, is not.
I mean, it would be one thing, Kev, if there's a limited pool of vaccines in Canada, and I don't suggest that these teams take from that pool, but with 100 million vaccines out there in the U.S., I'm making up the
Well, not every state though is down to in Michigan we are down to everybody can get it, but we're a small population state,
right?
A lot of states are now, though. I mean, a lot like the Rangers got vaccinated. We heard that the other day.
I'm sure the Red Wings did too because 2 days ago everybody became eligible.
Yeah, Pennsylvania. I was told a couple of days ago when I was at the game, they were still 1C at 1C, so they're going slow.
But I think that'll change. I mean, really, they need to get vaccinated now because, like they say, the playoffs are 4 weeks away. So you got to get one shot now, one shot 3 weeks from now, and then a week after that, you're kind of safe. But that's sort of you're pretty much safe a week after your second shot. They say so. Yeah, they got to do it now if they're going to do it. And the interesting thing about that, Kevin, though, it is you could talk about the ethicalness in Canada because of the fact that they just can't get shots and the Canadian teams are getting shots. You could also make the argument, though. If you really want to do a rationalization part of it, that these teams all kind of work for an American company,
right?
Like the NHL is
they do, but they're working in Canada, and you got to follow the laws in the country you're working in. So
I
think you also got to follow the ethics.
But I wonder what companies that are in America, like American companies, like I don't know, pick a company,
Coca-Cola.
Coca-Cola has branches in Canada for sure. I'm wondering what the people if there's a difference there with the people who work at a place like that.
That's a great question, and I think it would be important to find out what they're doing. But I can't believe that Canada would be allowing them to send vaccines across the border to their people when not all Canadians are getting it.
Yeah. It is a really tough spot. No questions asked.
Yeah, I mean it is complicated. Like I don't like the
the precedent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't either for sure. And but once all adults if all adults in this state are allowed to get it, I think then the NHL players should be allowed to get it. I mean, it's just that to me that's where.
Well, for sure, yeah. I mean, I would assume the Red Wings have already had it, just like I said, and because 2 days ago we were all adults can get it now. So
and they haven't announced it yet, but it's very plausible that because of the Vancouver Canucks being shut down, and I haven't heard anything to the contrary that they're going to open up their practice facility on Friday. There's been talk that the North Division may have their playoffs delayed by a week while the games are made up that Vancouver has to make up to fill their schedule, or that they will play play the games against the other two non-playoff teams, Calgary and Ottawa, after the playoffs start, just to get the 56 games in, because it has ramifications for the draft lottery and things of that nature. So, I mean, things are really, really up in the air right now because of the whole Vancouver situation. They're going to have to make up, I think, 7 or 8 games that they've missed.
Yeah. I don't know. Here's the thing. Will anybody, if it doesn't have an impact on the standings and it only has the draft, will you see teams forfeiting?
Yeah, you might.
You might.
You might. I mean, if it doesn't have an impact on the standings, you can get away with not playing those games, honestly. And the craziest concept I heard was that they would do what you said, Mike. They'd go a week longer in Canada, but they would make the first round a best of 5 series up there.
Oh, no.
I know that
they will never do that.
Wacky crazy, but I'm just saying these. You got to understand that I talked to somebody in the NHL, and I asked them what's the weirdest concept that's out there, just because I wanted to hear it, and that was what it was. So
the weirdest concept is going to the bubble again, and that's something that the players I think would revolt if they do.
Hey, Ak, I've got 2 small things. The first one is we should say, hey, Anthony Stolarz set a club record with 46 saves last night for Anaheim. We were all pretty sure with all the hip injuries and everything else when he left Philly that
for him.
He might not be able to be the goalie that maybe they originally thought he'd be, but he's done pretty good. And boy, did Patrick Laine look great with the pressure off, scoring 2 goals. Like, I don't think he's a pressure guy. I don't. I think this was a complete turnaround for him when you saw him the way he scored the goals last night. It was with the pressure off. It's like all of a sudden he's a different player.
That's fascinating. It is really interesting. All right, it's all the time we have for today, guys. Thank you so much, Kevin, for jumping in on a Tuesday. And as always, Thanks to the crew. Thanks for all of you for watching. And yesterday we set all kinds of records. We really appreciate it, guys. You guys are amazing. Remember, you can go to patreon.com/hockey to support the show if you feel so moved to do so. But in the meantime, remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey. It is only hockey. I promise. We'll be back again tomorrow.